Well, happy Friday to you. It is Geospatial 2.0 Friday talk time. Today's August the 20th. Today's a special day for me. So today I'm going to talk about changing my Geospatial 2.0 thinking. Actually, when I made that title, I thought it's probably better put extending my Geospatial 2.0 thinking. So where are we going with this one? Just to start with, it's almost extending what I spoke about last Friday. I showed this diagram and I'm titling this really back to front ? Solution to problem. I've really been focusing Geospatial 2.0 and talking about a couple of key changes that we're seeing in our landscape. First of all, it's the new data sets. I've included GIS data in there as well as a data source, but we've got new sensors, we've got new Earth observation data, that's drones, that's satellites, and as Stephen Ramage points out, it's not just those two sources, it's also terrestrial stuff, but it's really leveraging these new sensors we've got. It's also LiDAR data and 3D sources. So we've got all this new data that's streaming in, which is really changing the game. To process and analyze that data, that's huge amounts of data, we've also got new analytics as well. So we've got existing geoprocessing, which is within the GIS world, but we've also now got artificial intelligence and machine learning. So the perspective I've been taking, and actually I think it's a danger that we as technologists have done, or technology-led folks have done, is to start with the data and the analytics and then come back to the business problems that we're trying to solve. So, the ultimate goal of Geospatial 2.0 is to improve business outcomes. And as I'll talk about in this presentation or this talk, how do we actually start bringing this technology and data to a wider audience? So in some ways, I feel like it's back to front when we start with technology and data. My old mindset, going back before I ever thought about Geospatial 2.0, when I was a GISer, and I still am a GISer, but I suppose I've morphed into a geospatial person. I used to think in terms of maps, and not just as the focal point of the output, but more importantly, what problems could we tackle using maps? So I started at the map and kind of worked my way backwards, which was the wrong place to start. And I realized that it always was that sort of thing. When I used to talk and write blog articles about maps, I always thought, I'm missing the point here. And from previous presentations, when I moved to America and learned GIS, I became a map creation person. And that wasn't really, I'm a geographer, I think geographically, so maps are an incidental part of that thought process. It's the way we present information, but it doesn't start with a map. So my mindset now really is focused around data and multidimensional data. Again, I've mentioned that in more than one of my talks. So two-dimensional data, the stuff that we do in GIS a lot of, great for patterns. And now we're beginning to see 3D data becoming, and we hear digital twin and digital reality, giving us a sense of place. We haven't got to drive out and look at those places. We can actually get a sense of what they look like from our web browsers increasingly, and we can enrich that 3D data with other data sets. So 3D is becoming important, and also 4D data as well, so change data. That all ties back into these new data sets that we're able to automatically collect and process and analyze. So, but I'm still looking at it from a mindset now, which is location-based data. It isn't GIS per se. It isn't just spatial actually per se. It's actually data that's got a locational component. And we know that's vast. So starting at the destination is really where my extending my thought process is. I still have found myself talking about data and analytics, which is really the end of the journey. Well, the foundation of the journey, but we really start the journey. We really start at the destination. Where do you want to get to? And I've used an analogy before that, if my goal in transportation, my goal is to get to grandma's house quicker. I don't want to use a horse and cart, etc. I need some new mode to get there. Well, the requirements of that are a road, a vehicle to get there, and fuel to put in that vehicle to get there. So my destination really is to get to grandma's house quicker, the components that make up the solution are those three pieces that I spoke about, and data is really the fuel, and then we can think of technology maybe as the road and the car. I'm stretching an analogy there, but you get my point that we really need to be focused on what problem we're solving, and ultimately it's a business problem we're looking to solve. So who are we talking to? I think in GIS and in Geospatial, we've predominantly spoken to the technology folks. That's people in IT, that's people in the GIS department. More and more, and very much my sort of focus, I remain focused very much in the GIS and technology world, but increasingly the journey that I think we need to take, and what's really been in my mind for a long time, is how do we start bringing geospatial data and those solutions that technology can bring to bear to business folks. And it's really been the place that we've been very challenged to get to, and we remain there. But we still are now, beginning to those conversations with business folks. So what is it we're trying to do? I mean, what are business folks actually really focused on? They certainly don't understand geospatial. It's no good going into a CEO and start talking about location data or GIS or 3D or whatever it might be. They really don't care. Currently, they work with business systems. Those are the things that they touch each day more often than not. And I've given a couple of examples there, SAP and Salesforce. There are many others. So their daily work is focused around business systems. So the key question that comes to my mind when we think just about the business folks, remember, I'm not talking about the technology guys here, still a very valid conversation, I'm just focused on the business folks, is which business processes are intrinsically geospatial? So that's a critical question to ask. And I'm early in putting this slide up. I should have given some more introduction to this. But ultimately, it's my view that we only can bring geospatial solutions to business folks by working within the environments they're familiar with. And again, SAP and Salesforce are becoming ever more spatially enabled, but the folks that are using those technologies are not necessarily understanding that a lot of what they work with is geospatial. People, places and things, I've said before. And increasingly, as we are now getting data that's coming in that is IoT data, for example, a big question is being asked within organizations is, how do we leverage this data? What do we do with it? And I would argue that one of the key components of this is we need to integrate, bring together geospatial data and link it with non-geospatial data. So if we think about the core of what is GIS, it's geometry, it's XY of a point, for example, and its attributes. It's a lamppost, it's 12 foot tall, it's made of steel, it was put in place 10 years ago. Those are the attributes of that particular feature. It could be a person, but a GIS fundamentally stores geometry and attributes. What we can do is enrich that data by linking it to what is in business systems. So, geo-enabling is really the linkage of geospatial and non-geospatial data. So that could be documents, that could be work orders, that could be anything related to site selection, it could relate to supply chain, on and on and on. So it's always been a challenge for people in the geospatial world to talk about what is geospatial and why it's important to business people. And frankly, we start the conversation from the technology angle, which is the wrong place to start. We start the conversation from the map angle, which was my mistake years ago, thinking in terms of the map. Map's just an output. Data is just the road and the car and the fuel, those pieces, data and technology, to get us to grandma's house. But what is the actual problem we're trying to get after? Geo-enabling is how we actually do that linkage. Once we've actually connected those data sets, we can start really asking questions. We can start helping business folks who have business problems and they're using business processes within existing systems to actually look at that and have a geospatial component to that, which I would argue is in many cases core to what they're doing, even though they don't fully realize that. So just stepping back to the start or the middle part of this conversation, it's my belief that if we're going to talk to business people, we need to talk to them about the systems they're currently using. And it's up to us to actually look at those systems and the processes those systems provide, the modules in SAP, I mean, all the pieces that make up these systems, and understand within those systems what is fundamentally geospatial. If we can G-enable those systems, it then opens the doors for us to actually work within those systems, leveraging geospatial to actually answer a whole host of new problems. And it means that we never actually attack any problem talking about maps or location data or location technology. We talk the language of business folks. So there it is. There's my Friday talk. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. And again, we'll do another one next week. Thanks for watching.